feel like you're constantly on the go, but you're not really getting anywhere? And perhaps is stress getting in the way of your happiness and accomplishment? Well, if so, then mindfulness is for you. And more importantly, this conversation that we're about to have is for you. Tara Nylese is here, and her book is Mindfulness in Everyday Life. Her website is 10minutemindfulness.com, and Tara created the 10-minute mindfulness program to facilitate a scientific approach to mental and emotional wellness practices in the workplace, anyone, no matter their experience. So we'll be unpacking some of these amazing ideas about integrating our passion with our well-being, mindfulness, workplace wellness, and a balanced lifestyle and everything else that entails, so we can help ourselves, we can help others live an amazing, satisfied, fulfilled life. It's what we want. So Tara, glad to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to have the opportunity to chat with you and talk about mindfulness and well-being in everyday life.
And let's do it, because the good news is there's less stigma, isn't there? It's talked about a lot more, but then the problem is when something's talked about so much, it loses its meaning, right? People kind of don't, they use it fast and loose. There's not really a definition. You hear it so much that you forget about it. And so it's good to kind of just get some real definitions and terms and advice locked down from a professional. And so, but based on that, who are you? Like, I gave a little bit of a bio, but what did I leave out? What's your current focus and passion?
Yeah, well, I guess what makes me unique is that I'm actually a scientist. I've been a scientist for really, I want to say my whole life, my whole career. But as a teenager, I really knew I wanted to be in the sciences. And I was super fortunate to have a great career as a scientist for many years. And even working my way up to a global manager in the corporate world as a scientist. And so kind of having that scientific background and then also pursuing mindfulness really almost seems different. I've actually been told that it's weird that I'm a scientist and that I practice mindfulness. And I don't see it as weird. And the reason is, as a scientist, it's like, if you try something like science is experimental. Like if you try something and it works, then great, then do more of it. If you try something, you do an experiment and it doesn't work, well, then you figure out what's wrong. You make some tweaks, you try it again, see if that works better. You make some more tweaks and then see if that works better. And that's exactly what I've done with meditation and mindfulness in my own life. And that's where I've said, okay, well, this actually works for me. I've seen the work. I've seen the value of it. I've seen how it impacts my life positively, and I've done more of it, and I've had that great outcome. So really, I've applied the science of mindfulness to my personal and professional life.
Well, very nice. And I'm a big fan of that scientific method. You're giving me flashbacks to, I think I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I came across that, and this idea that you have a hypothesis and you perform an experiment and you get results and then you iterate. And that just, when you apply that to many things in life, right? The work you have to do, the problems you're trying to solve, your money situation, your relationship, it makes it more digestible, right? That you're not just trying to solve this huge, overwhelming, life-changing problem. You're just trying little things and seeing what works. And if not, don't do that. If yes, then do more of that. If it's close but not quite, then kind of repeat and reiterate. And so, as far as this field that you've chosen to pursue, right? Mindfulness and well-being. What's that all about? What do these terms mean?
Yeah, great question. So really mindfulness means paying attention to the present moment. It's being focused on what you're actually doing. So I'm here having a great conversation with you, and I'm actually really enjoying our conversation. And so I'm engaged, I'm smiling, I'm happy, I'm talking about something that I like. And it means that I'm mindful, I'm aware of our conversation. My mind is not thinking about what I'm going to be doing later or what I should have done or if I made a mistake. If I said something wrong, I'm not worried about it now because that's in the past. So really being focused on the present moment is what mindfulness is about. And then that actually helps reduce our stress or anxiety because we're giving our all to what we're doing. And so if you have to finish a task, create a project, do something important at work, being focused on it is going to give you the best results because you're giving it your all. You're giving it the creativity, the dedication, the attention that's required to have the highest quality output. It increases performance. And so when we're at work, when we're applying it to work, when we're focusing on what we're doing, we're inevitably getting a higher quality in a shorter amount of time because we're focused. It is the exact opposite of multitasking. And I used to be a huge multitasker, chronic multitasker, and proud of it. But realizing, looking back on things, it's not the best way to be. And then that also creates anxiety. So to really answer your question again, mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment, but then also really enjoying wrapping yourself up in the present moment and saying, okay, the problem for tomorrow, I'm going to solve that tomorrow. It's not saying that the problems don't exist. It's saying that I'm going to focus on them during an appropriate time.
Yeah, you make it sound so logical, so doable, right? This idea that maybe you're fooling yourself by thinking that you can do all these things at once, spinning the plates, as they call it. But then when your attention and focus is split in that way, then you're not really there. And it's always been a problem, but it seems like it's become more of an aware problem we've had since those dang smartphones have existed, right? It's infinity in your pocket. They ping, they light up. We're having a conversation and we just kind of like look down or look away, and it's like, if back in the good old days, if you were talking to someone and then you like opened up a magazine while they were talking, that'd be really rude, right? But then for some reason it's okay to do that with our phones. And how do we get to mindfulness, or how do we work on that? Because it's easy enough to say, oh yeah, like stress about your problems later, but a lot of these things are built in unconscious. So how do we exist better and more in the present moment?
Yeah, great. Another great question. Thank you. So, really, just practicing it like anything else, cultivating an acknowledgement that you want to have a better life. And I think a lot of that really is so important because in the busyness and the hecticness of our lives, we equate busyness with importance. The busier that I am, the more important that I am, the more stuff that I'm carrying on my shoulders, the more important I must be because everybody's coming to me looking for a solution. Well, but really, so being able to sort of break that false equation, that equating that importance with busyness, and being able to say, like, I am important, my well-being is important, and then realizing the realization that it comes back around. So when you truly are practicing mindfulness and applying it into your personal and professional life, it comes back around and it gives you all the advantages, but you really have to take that leap of faith. And so how to practice? So the first thing is just acknowledging, like, yeah, I think maybe there's got to be something more to life than multitasking and having myself overworked. And then once you admit that, then you say, okay, well, now I'm going to see how I can do a better job of being engaged, kind of getting in the flow. We've heard of that a lot, like getting in the flow, where you're so absorbed in what you're doing, you're actually mastering your technique of what you're doing. And then time goes by without even realizing it because you're paying so deeply paying attention to what you're doing. The result then is also going to be a higher quality output. Kind of like I said before, when you're doing mindfulness, when you're practicing mindfulness and applying it, it's the same as being in the flow because mindfulness strengthens your ability to focus on what you're doing. And the nuts and bolts of practicing mindfulness, it's really just setting aside a few minutes each day to strengthen your brain. It's like brain exercises. I often think of it as like a combination of both cardio and strength training. We need just a few minutes each day of strengthening that ability to concentrate, single pointed concentration and just focusing your mind. And something as simple as guided meditations from your iPhone or on YouTube or wherever it's easy for you to practice, really just focusing your mind and not letting yourself get distracted for just a few minutes, a couple of reps in your strength training. And then applying it to your everyday life is the cardio aspect of it. And that's saying, okay, well, now that I'm working on this task, I'm going to pay attention to this task while I'm doing it. Now I move on to this task and I'll pay attention to that one while I'm doing it. And so then having it throughout the day, being with you, being able to keep your mind with you no matter what you're doing during the day. So combination of dedicated practice, even just 10 minutes a day, and then applying it to your personal and professional life.
Well, this is powerful and this is cool. And I hadn't heard of this before. This idea that you can strengthen it, to practice it, to set aside time to being in the present moment. And I'm laughing on the inside a little bit because I saw some TikTok trend like a month ago with those Gen Z kids, and they would do some kind of challenge where they would sit in an airplane flight without their phone and just like sit there for a few hours. And people were like, "Oh, it's like there was a an episode of Seinfeld about that where he just like sat on the couch and just kind of stared and did nothing, and it was like something new. Like imagine that. Just sit, you don't watch TV or play with your phone, you just sit on the couch and exist in that present moment. And I think that's one of these things where I think I have a little bit of cognitive dissonance about it. Like I tell myself, like, I have to pack the
Mm.
schedule, I have to do all these things, and I catch myself with some negative self-talk about it. But then I also like just like forcefully remind myself that like, hey, it is important to take a break, it is important to focus on one thing at a time. But I feel like I kind of like, I don't 100% believe it, I like 80% believe it, and then I force myself with this routine and I'm like, hey, well, it's what's working for me for now. And as far as us tackling this problem, right, and how you tackled this problem, my understanding is that you had this high stress corporate job and you tried all these other like techniques, but you only found like one that worked the best. So can you tell us about just like your own journey in reprogramming yourself, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I had a very busy corporate job for a long time and completely loved what I did. But it was, all hours of the day, traveling around the world, and didn't have a whole lot of time to spend with my family. And I remember one day distinctly where my daughter was, I think it was third grade, and she was supposed to be getting on the bus, and I was yelling at her to get on the bus on time, as if the world would collapse if she didn't get on the bus on time. The worst thing would be I would drive her to school. But anyway, so to me, being in that overstretching, I just had to get her on the bus, and didn't matter if I yelled at her and rushed her and made her day stressful. I just had to get it done. And that's kind of what my everyday day to day looked like. I had these My schedule was packed. I had these things I had to get done. And that's just how I saw, that's just how it is. The funny thing is once I started practicing mindfulness, and I did it I just went to a community center. It was in the library, and I did like one of these hour sessions on, what is meditation and mindfulness. And then I ended up taking a couple week course on it. And then I ended up joining Kadampa Meditation Centers, which is a worldwide organization, but mostly meditation for people like us who are busy and stressed. And the location that I go to is in New York City, and I talk about what to do when you're on the subway and it's a really unpleasant situation, and you might want to yell at the person next to you or do something crazy, but just to have that deep breath, relax, kind of give yourself the space that you need to separate yourself from that outward chaos. Anyway, so that's where I was. I decided to start practicing, and the funny thing is, my schedule didn't change. It was still full of activities, but my mind changed. And so I was able to think more clearly, make quicker and better, more effective decisions in less time, only because I didn't have that outer chaos creating this chatter in my mind. And so my mind was quiet. I was able to have insights, whispers, and able to do things more effectively just simply by cutting through that busyness chatter that's constantly in our minds.
And it almost seems counterintuitive, right? This idea that there's the chatter, and if I can just like make it all work at once, then I'll make better decisions and faster. And you're like, well, no, if you quiet the all this garbage down, then you'll better
Yeah.
be able to think these things through, right? If someone's loud or annoying on the subway, you put that out. If the daughter won't get on the bus or you're late, you think through alternatives. It just seems like a better way of taking care of yourself, which I imagine applies in many benefits, in many ways, right? There's how your family life improves at home, but there's also that dreaded workplace environment, right? Workplace wellness. So, what have you seen changed lately? Because it seems like the workplace has just like in the last 10 years altered so much, right? With remote work and COVID, and it seems like there's more awareness of bullying. It just seems like so much has been upended. So, what have you seen about just the way the workplace has changed?
Yeah, thankfully, workplace really is embracing mindfulness. So, and well-being in the workplace. I think since COVID, we've really learned some important lessons there, but also scientific publications. Like the CDC tells us that anywhere from 70 to 95% of people are stressed in every single day. So we're dealing with stress that impacts our lives every day, and 50% of people report being impacted by stress in their personal or work lives. And so every day. So, so we have this just tremendous amount of tough stuff to deal with. We're all under stress. We're not alone. But finally, the workplace is acknowledging that it's really a problem. And publications like Harvard Business Review or Forbes, they're all talking about mindfulness and well-being in the workplace now. So that's lending more credibility to it when you have these major publications, both the scientific publications and the business related publications talking about how mindfulness increases productivity, allows leaders to make clearer decisions, and then also gives you a creative edge or a higher quality output. So all of this credibility by these third-party sources, scientific sources, are really giving us that ability to shift in the workplace, thankfully.
Yeah, there's something to that. And so you've already shared a few techniques with us, right? You said to schedule time to be mindful and to slow those thoughts down. And we spoke before about like the breathing techniques, which like that's something where I only discovered that a few months ago. So can you share some of that advice with us? If someone says, oh, breathing techniques, I don't know what to do, or maybe like I've tried it, it didn't work for me. Like, what do you think works really well as far as the meditation, mindfulness, calmness, breathing techniques?
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of my favorite practices to teach others is the association of a happy place, thinking about a happy place in our mind and the feeling that we feel in our body. So, in a 10-minute session, I'll invite people to close their eyes, slow down their breathing into a relaxed and comfortable pace, and then bring their mind to the thoughts of a happy place. And then inevitably, when our mind goes to our happy place, our body relaxes a little bit more. And so then I focus inward in the practice and ask people to really notice how they're feeling. So associating that breath, that breath work, that in and out breath work, or a longer exhale. And then feel how that impacts your body. How does your heart feel? How does your whole body feel? Did you drop your jaw, relax your tension? And then once we get people associating that feeling, then we associate that feeling with the breath. And what I love then is then you could just simply take a breath anytime, like right now, I'll take a breath. And that keyed my body to relax because I've associated that good, happy place feeling with my breath. And then my body responds with that relaxation response. And I think you mentioned that you had a technique that worked for you. I'd love to hear that.
Well, that technique is just I breathe in for 8 seconds and hold it for 8 seconds and then breathe it out for 8 seconds and repeat as possible. And I used to struggle with sleep. And now I kind of figured out like how I like the covers and how I like to position my body. And then I just kind of do that counting like 8, 8, 8. And then I noticed that if I can't stick with it, if I can't even get through 1, 8, I'm like, hey, I'm not dialed in yet. And then if I can only do it like 3 or 4 repetitions, I'm like, not dialed in yet. If we do all 8, I think I don't know if it's 100% of the time. Maybe once or twice it hasn't worked, but like 98%. Then I go into unconsciousness, and it's just like a way to like relax, calm down, get to sleep without the struggle of like, oh, I'm stressed. I can't quiet the thoughts. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. Just that breathe in 8 seconds, hold it 8 seconds, breathe out 8 seconds, repeat 8 times. It's just like how you've tried different techniques. That's something that I stumbled across and worked for me. So this is magical stuff, isn't it?
I love that. Yeah, when you have success, it makes you motivated to keep doing it, right? And so, for more specific exercises, your listeners are welcome to visit my website. I have a free excerpt on my book there. The book also includes guided meditations in written form, plus also links to audio sessions. So you could do a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, experience it yourself. If you buy the full book, then you'll have all the audios and the guided sessions as well. So you'll get a specific taste of how to do a 10-minute mindfulness session.
Very cool. And so it's all in one place, isn't it? 10minutemindfulness.com. And in these last few minutes of our conversation here, Tara, I'm curious just about the surprises. Like you've learned so many different things, right? You know about balanced lifestyle, workplace wellness, mindfulness. Is there anything in your journey that just kind of like changed everything for you? Were there any ahas or surprises?
Yeah, well, really, it was, I won't say a surprise, but really a wonderfully planned opportunity. So, for a very long time, I planned to retire at 50, and really, retire is a pivot. And so, for a very long time in my high stress job, I invested aggressively and planned thoroughly. And then I was able to pivot out of the corporate world last year when I was 50. And then, so now I pursue the wellness work full time in all my time. And I've just got these wonderful clients. It's been wonderful to see how my clients have embraced mindfulness in the corporate busy workplace. So I do keynote speeches and I do webinars and workshops in the corporate world. So that's been really pleasantly surprising to see how many clients have embraced mindfulness in the professional environment. I love seeing that, and I look forward to many more opportunities there.
Well, very cool. So you've been on this journey, haven't you? You said, "Hey, I'm a scientist. I figure out mindfulness." You became an author, you became a keynote speaker, you do your workshops and you do your retreats, and that's 10minutemindfulness.com. And then that book is Mindfulness in Everyday Life, a practical guide to make mindfulness work for you. And then you can find Tara at LinkedIn. That's first name Tara, last name Nylese, and it helps so many different times to listen to a podcast. Someone said something that really helped you or woke you up, and it's just so useful to the podcast guest, the speaker, to get a message just saying, "Hey, you said this one little thing. I'm not sure if you knew how powerful it was, but it helped me out." And Tara empowers others to thrive personally and professionally through applied positive psychology, mindful well-being, and signature strength, so that way you can succeed in the sciences and workplace wellness, and just get what you want and be happier and think things through. And that's where we all want to be, right? There's no point in being miserable and struggling. There is a better way, especially with what Tara has been sharing with us as far as mindfulness and just some of these techniques. So we said that Mindfulness in Everyday Life is the book. And then 10minutemindfulness.com is the website where you can find out about her online events, her workshops. There's those mindfulness videos, and those other resources that you mentioned here, Tara. But now it's time for the scary part of the show where I try to put you on the spot. I ask for a quote or lesson that has served you that you can pass on to us. So, what do you have for a quote or lesson?
All right. Well, I guess I would say I have a lesson, and it really is how we can both be happy for ourselves, but also really have sustainable happiness. And about 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to see the Dalai Lama. And the biggest takeaway that I got from my time there was there is foolish happiness and wise happiness. And foolish happiness is when we do something that makes us happy. And wise selfishness or wise happiness is when you do something that makes somebody else happy and then you get happy in return. And so I'll use an example here is, I think of chocolate cake. If I eat a piece of chocolate cake, I'm happy. I'm very happy. But it also has greater meaning if I share a piece of chocolate cake with somebody else, because then I make you happy, and that in turn makes me happy. Or even better, if somebody says, "Well, what's the recipe for your chocolate cake so I could make it for my grandmother's birthday?" And so when we share happiness with others, it becomes sustainable and self-perpetuating. And so I'll leave you with that: is find ways of perpetuating happiness so that it continues to go around.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. And we've all been there, right? You help someone out, you give them advice, you give them a helping hand. It helps them, it helps you, it grows, it multiplies. And if this sounds good to you as far as using these techniques and changing your life and just getting a better handle on your stress, your workplace, your productivity, then the next place to go is 10minutemindfulness.com. 10 Minute Mindfulness is a wellness membership program of easy and practical ways to bring fulfillment into our everyday lives, which enables us to enhance our way of life in any circumstance. Well, Tara and Nylese, I'll be thinking about that idea of the what's the labeled selfish happiness versus what's the other alternative?
Wise happiness.
Selfish versus wise happiness, where you are passing it along, you're helping others. It doesn't just help you, it helps the people that are surrounding you. That's wonderful. That's excellent. Let's think about that. Let's apply that. 10minutemindfulness.com. Tara and Nylese, wonderful speaking with you.
So nice to speak to you and your audience. Thank you.
All right, super.